The tiny town of Harmony Creek was tucked away in a valley, a peaceful place where the biggest excitement was usually the Sunday sermon. At its heart stood the little wooden church, its steeple reaching for the wide blue sky. Inside, the air always smelled of old wood, beeswax, and a faint, sweet hint of dust. This was Alara's domain. She was the church organist, a woman with kind eyes that crinkled at the corners when she smiled. Every Sunday, her fingers danced across the keys of the grand organ, making music that filled every corner of the church, sometimes soft as a whisper, sometimes booming like thunder. The organ itself was a marvel, old and a bit creaky, but Alara knew just how to coax beautiful sounds from its many pipes. Its bellows groaned and sighed as she played, a familiar comfort to everyone in Harmony Creek. On the worn wooden pews, patched hymnals lay ready for singing, their pages soft from years of use. Even when the sun dipped below the distant mountains, the church remained a beacon. Oil lamps, carefully trimmed and glowing with warm, golden light, hung from the ceiling and sat on ledges, chasing away the shadows. Their gentle flicker made the stained glass windows come alive with soft colors, casting dancing patterns on the floor. Alara loved her church, every nook and cranny. She loved the quiet mornings before anyone arrived, when only the dust motes danced in the lamplight. She loved the loud, joyful singing on Sundays and the hushed reverence during evening vigils. It was a place of comfort, a safe harbor for the souls of Harmony Creek. Little did she know, it was about to become a safe harbor for a very special, very secret soul. One night, a storm like no other roared through Harmony Creek. Rain lashed against the church windows, and the wind howled like a hungry wolf, making the old building creak and groan. Alara, attending a quiet vigil, felt the chill deep in her bones, despite the warm glow of the oil lamps. The usual peaceful quiet was broken by the angry thrashing of the wind and the drumming of rain on the roof. Suddenly, a faint tapping came from the church's heavy wooden door. Alara, surprised, went to open it just a crack. Peeking in was a small face, pale and streaked with dirt and rain. It was a boy, no older than 5, shivering violently, his eyes wide with fear. He looked like a drowned mouse, tiny and utterly alone. "Please, ma'am," he whispered, his voice thin as a thread. I got lost." Alara's heart went out to him. She knew this child was an orphan from the edge of town, often seen wandering, but never before had he come to the church. She quickly pulled him inside, out of the terrible storm. He was soaked to the bone, and his little frame trembled with cold and fright. The vigil was still going on, and Alara knew she couldn't just have a soaking wet child sitting openly in the pews. A quick glance around showed her a quiet corner of the organ loft, mostly hidden from view. With a gentle hand, she led the trembling boy up the narrow, winding stairs to the loft. "You can stay here," she whispered, her voice soft and reassuring. "No one will see you. You'll be safe." She found an old, soft blanket in a cupboard near the organ's bellows and wrapped him tightly in it. He curled up beside the massive organ pipes, his little body still shaking, but his wide eyes fixed on Alara. She gave him a piece of bread and a sip of water from her own flask. As the vigil continued below, the soft hymns and the gentle flicker of the oil lamps created a warm, secret cocoon around the frightened boy, whom Alara now knew was named Finn. He was safe, for now, hidden away in the heart of the church. The storm eventually passed, but Finn stayed. Alara, with her quiet strength, decided he was safer hidden in the organ loft than out in the harsh world. Days turned into weeks, weeks into months, and months into years. Finn grew up amidst the polished wood and singing pipes of the church. The organ loft became his whole world, a secret sanctuary known only to him and Alara. He learned to move silently, like a shadow, so no one below would ever guess he was there. His days were filled with quiet tasks. He helped Alara polish the brass stops of the organ until they gleamed and learned the names of every pipe. He pumped the great bellows with his small but growing strength, feeling the rumbling breath of the organ as Alara's fingers danced over the keys. He became her silent assistant, her little helper. Alara taught him to read from the old, patched hymnals, their worn pages telling tales of faith and hope. His small fingers, once trembling, grew steady as he learned to mend the torn covers and loose pages, carefully stitching them back together. He listened to the sermons from above, absorbing lessons about kindness, honesty, and courage. Alara didn't just teach him words and tasks. She taught him about the world, about right and wrong, and about having a brave heart even when things were scary. He wasn't just a hidden boy. He was becoming Alara's child in every way that mattered. She shared her simple meals with him, told him stories in hushed tones when the church was empty, and tucked him into his makeshift bed behind the largest pipes. He learned to trust her completely, to see the unwavering goodness in her heart. The organ's mighty roar and gentle whispers became the soundtrack to his childhood, a constant reminder of the safety and love he found in this secret place. He was growing, not just in size, but in spirit, nurtured by Alara's quiet wisdom and the solemn beauty of the old church. Years spun by like the turning pages of a well-read book. Finn, once a small, hidden boy, was now a young man. His shoulders were broad, his hands strong from years of pumping organ bellows and mending. Though still quiet, a new determination shone in his eyes, a reflection of the courage Alara had taught him. The organ loft, once his whole world, began to feel too small for his growing spirit. He felt a call to something more, a need to use the strength and lessons he'd gained. One quiet morning, Finn told Alara he had to leave. It was a hard goodbye, filled with unspoken words and a shared understanding. He promised he would never forget her or the safe haven she had provided. With a sturdy pack on his back and Alara's blessing in his heart, Finn stepped out of Harmony Creek, no longer a shadow, but a young man walking into the wide world. He found his calling in the thunderous world of artillery. The rhythmic pump of the organ bellows, the careful tuning of pipes, the precise timing of Alara's music, all these had unknowingly prepared him. He learned to master the great cannons, understanding their power, how to aim them just so, and how to make them roar with controlled might. The sound of the cannon firing was like a giant booming organ chord, and Finn, with his sensitive ear, quickly became one of the best. He was known for his calm focus, his steady hand, and his unwavering aim. Though miles separated him from Harmony Creek, the church and Alara were never far from his thoughts. He carried the scent of old wood and oil lamps in his memory, and the sound of the organ's deep voice was a comfort in noisy barracks. He often thought of Alara, her gentle smile, and the quiet courage she showed every day. He knew, deep in his heart, that everything he had become, every skill he possessed, had started in that hidden loft under the watchful, loving eye of the church organist. Back in Harmony Creek, the peace that had always settled over the valley began to fray. Whispers turned into worried conversations, and worried conversations turned into outright fear. A notorious gang of raiders, known as the Dust Devils, had been terrorizing towns further west, leaving behind a trail of ruin and despair. Now, word had reached Harmony Creek that they were heading this way. The townsfolk, used to quiet lives of farming and trade, were not prepared for such a threat. The sheriff was old and his deputies few. There were no soldiers, no great defenses. Panic began to spread like wildfire. Men gathered in hushed groups outside the general store, their faces drawn and pale. Women clutched their children tighter, their eyes darting nervously towards the road that led into town. Alara, too, felt the creeping dread. She saw the fear in the eyes of her congregation during Sunday service. The hymns seemed to lose their usual joy, replaced by a desperate plea for safety. People looked to each other for answers, but found only shared helplessness. What could they do against a gang of ruthless outlaws, hardened by violence? The church, once a symbol of comfort, now seemed terribly vulnerable. Its wooden walls offered no protection against a determined attack. The town council met day and night, but every plan they came up with seemed too small, too weak. They talked of barricades, of sending riders for help, but help was far away, and the raiders were close. The air in Harmony Creek grew heavy with unspoken terror. They were like a flock of sheep, watching a wolf pack approach, with no shepherd in sight. All they could do was wait, pray, and hope for a miracle that no one truly believed would come. The peaceful rhythm of Harmony Creek was broken, replaced by the frantic beat of fear. Miles away, in a dusty army camp, Finn heard the unsettling rumors. News traveled slowly in the vast western lands, but news of the dust devils always seemed to find a way. A traveling merchant, his face pale with fear, spoke of their destructive path, mentioning towns and settlements by name. Then, a chilling detail reached Finn's ears. The raiders were headed towards Harmony Creek. A cold knot formed in Finn's stomach. Harmony Creek, his home, the place where Alara, the woman who had given him a life, still lived. All the memories rushed back. The warm glow of the oil lamps, the booming organ, Alara's kind eyes, the secret loft where he had grown up. The thought of those ruthless men bringing their violence to the quiet valley, to Alara and her church, filled him with a fierce protectiveness he hadn't known he possessed. He remembered Alara's lessons on courage, about standing up for what was right, even when it was scary. He thought of her quiet strength, how she had faced down the storm and given a lost boy a safe haven. Now, it was his turn to be strong for her, for the town that, even unknowingly, had sheltered him. Finn didn't hesitate. He sought out his commanding officer, a grizzled old captain who had seen many battles. He explained the situation, his voice firm and steady, outlining the threat to his hometown. The captain, seeing the fire in Finn's eyes and knowing his skill with artillery, granted him leave, along with a small but powerful cannon and a wagon to carry it. With a determined set to his jaw, Finn began the long, hard journey back to Harmony Creek. He wasn't just a skilled artilleryman now. He was a guardian returning home. The boom of his cannon, which once sounded like a grand organ, would now sing a different tune, one of defense and defiance. He was coming to protect the quiet valley and the woman who had taught him what courage truly meant. Every mile brought him closer to the place he had secretly called home, and to the task he knew he was meant to do. The dust devils rode into Harmony Creek with a terrifying roar, their horses thundering, their faces grim under wide-brimmed hats. The townspeople huddled in their homes, fear a cold hand around their hearts. Alara watched from the church window, her face pale, praying for a miracle. Just as the raiders reached the edge of town, a sound unlike anything Harmony Creek had ever heard split the air. Asterisk boom, asterisk. The ground shook. Smoke billowed from the hill overlooking the town, and a cannonball whistled past the lead rider's ear, kicking up a geyser of dust right in front of the gang. The raiders pulled their horses to a halt, confused and startled. They had expected a frightened, defenseless town, not a booming welcome. Then another boom. This time a cannonball landed closer, scattering rocks and dirt right in their path. From the hilltop, a lone figure stood beside a large cannon, silhouetted against the setting sun. It was Finn. He worked with a calm precision, loading, aiming, and firing, each shot perfectly placed to deter, not to harm, but to send a very clear message. He fired another shot, and the cannon's deep voice echoed through the valley, bouncing off the mountains like a giant drum. The raiders, brave as they claimed to be, were not prepared for this. They were used to easy targets, not unexpected artillery fire. This wasn't a fight they wanted. They looked at each other, then back at the determined figure on the hill, then at the smoking cannon. One by one, they turned their horses around. The thundering of hooves quickly faded, replaced by the nervous murmurs of the townsfolk slowly emerging from their hiding places. Finn watched them go, his heart pounding, but his face remained steady. He had done it. The very sounds that reminded him of the church organ's bellowing might have saved Harmony Creek. The courage Alara had instilled in him, nurtured in the quiet organ loft, had become a loud, public declaration defending the place and the people he held dear. The silence that followed the last boom was the sweetest sound the town had ever heard. As the last echoes of the cannon faded, a hush fell over Harmony Creek. Then, slowly, cautiously, People began to emerge from their homes. Their faces, minutes ago etched with terror, now held a mixture of disbelief and wonder. They looked towards the hill, where the smoke still drifted from the cannon, and at the lone figure standing beside it. Who was this brave man who had appeared from nowhere to save them? Whispers rippled through the crowd. Did you see that? He drove them off. A miracle. Alara, her heart still pounding from fear, but now swelling with a different emotion, left the church and walked towards the hill. As she drew closer, she recognized the familiar, determined set of his shoulders, the quiet strength in his stance. Her breath hitched. It couldn't be. Finn, seeing her, began to descend the hill, his gaze fixed on her. As he got closer, the townsfolk could make out his features. He was a stranger, yet there was something familiar about his eyes. Suddenly, an older woman gasped. That boy. He looks like the little orphan boy from years ago, Finn. Another person chimed in. Yes, the one who disappeared. All eyes turned to Alara. She simply nodded, a soft smile gracing her lips, tears welling in her kind eyes. It is Finn, she confirmed, her voice filled with quiet pride. The boy I found during the great storm. He grew up here, in the church. A wave of amazement swept through the town. The quiet, shy boy no one remembered had returned as their savior, a skilled artilleryman. Their awe turned to profound gratitude. They had unknowingly harbored a hero in their midst, nurtured by the gentle organist. The secret life of the hidden boy had bloomed into a public act of extraordinary courage, and Harmony Creek was forever thankful. Alara hurried towards Finn, her steps quick despite her age. The crowd parted for her, their faces now filled with respectful curiosity rather than fear. When she reached him, Finn's strong hands gently took her smaller ones. For a moment, they simply looked at each other, a silent conversation passing between them that spoke of years of shared secrets, quiet lessons, and unwavering love. Finn, Alara whispered, her voice thick with emotion. She reached up, her fingers tracing the line of his jaw, a gesture she hadn't made since he was a small boy curled up in the loft. My boy. Finn, usually so reserved, felt a warmth spread through him. Alara, he replied, his voice deeper now, but still holding the familiar respect he'd learned at her knee. I came as fast as I could. A proud smile lit Alara's face, chasing away the worry that had settled there for days. You did well, my dear. So very well. Her eyes, usually so gentle, now sparkled with fierce pride. I knew you had a brave heart. You always did. But to see you stand so tall, to protect us all, I couldn't be prouder. The townsfolk watched, touched by the raw emotion of the reunion. They saw not just a hero and a grateful townswoman, but a mother and her son, bound by an invisible thread of love and sacrifice. Finn, who had always lived in the shadows, now stood bathed in the golden light of the setting sun, his courage shining for all to see. He had learned from Alara that true strength wasn't just about big muscles or loud noises, but about kindness, protection, and standing up for what was right. And in that moment, seeing Alara's proud smile, he knew that every lesson, every quiet hour in the loft, had led him to this very public act of bravery. The day after the Dust Devils turned tail, Harmony Creek buzzed with a newfound energy. The fear had lifted, replaced by relief and a deep sense of community. The townspeople, still amazed by the turn of events, gathered around Finn, eager to thank their unlikely hero. No longer was he the unknown artilleryman. He was Finn, the boy Alara had raised, the protector of Harmony Creek. He was no longer hidden away in the organ loft. His story, once a secret shared only between him and Alara, was now told with pride by every man, woman, and child in town. They saw him not just as a brave soldier, but as a living testament to Alara's kindness and the power of a hidden good deed. The church, too, seemed to stand taller, its oil lamps burning brighter, its organ ready to sing songs of joy and thankfulness. Finn, though still quiet, accepted their gratitude with a humble nod. He stayed in Harmony Creek for a while, helping the town secure itself, teaching some of the younger men about defense. He spent many hours with Alara, sharing stories of his travels and helping her with the organ, just as he had as a boy. The old instrument still bellowed with might, but now it felt like a celebration, a reminder of how its own sound had led Finn to his destiny. Harmony Creek was safe once more, its peace restored, but forever changed. The lesson was clear. A small act of kindness, nurtured in secret, could grow into a powerful force for courage and protection. Finn, the orphan boy who had once hidden in a church loft, had found his true voice in the thunder of a cannon, and in doing so, had become the very public hero his quiet town needed. He was a beacon of hope, proving that courage often begins in the most unexpected and hidden places, waiting for the moment to shine.